what happened to me, which was one of the best things that ever happened to me, this was an amazing, I didn't realise at the time, I was doing a local function at a place called Madeley Civic Hall here in Stoke, just outside. And standing at the back of the room when I was just doing one spot at this function, which is nice, because when you're used to doing 3 at working men's clubs, God bless them. And there's a guy standing at the back of the room with a Crombie coat on, off the shoulder, a big cigar and a briefcase, standing by the wall at the back of the room. Looked out of place. And I couldn't take my eyes off him. And I did well. I had a good night. And I came up and went into my dressing room. They came and knocked on my door. And it's this guy with the Crombie and the cigar and the briefcase. He came in and he said, "I'm Tony James. I'm an agent and I want to manage you. I've seen you twice before and I've come to see you tonight. And I want to offer you a management and I want to offer you a contract for 3 years and I'll look after all your work."
That doesn't happen.
And I think I was just about thinking about turning pro at the time. And Tony, I went to see him in his office, and he was a great bull person. He just started as an agent, and he got great ideas, and I signed a 3-year contract with him, and he was absolutely wonderful. We did well together. He got me out of the working men's clubs into cabaret. Cabaret clubs were just taking off in the early 70s. And I remember the first one I did was the Talk of the North at Manchester. The first week I ever did was with Matt Monroe.
Oh, one of your idols.
He certainly was. He was my idol before that, and even a bigger one after. And then he got me out of the working men's clubs into cabaret, and I moved. I was doing, rather than doing one night in working men's clubs all around the country, I was doing weeks in places then.
So it feels better, doesn't it, to stay somewhere a week? You get the vibe for the room, the audiences.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's just
do the one spot.
Up, one spot.
Very professional as well, and the world changed for me. So.
And how long did you do that for?
That would be 1970. I did my first cabaret room, which was that with Matt. And then I started to work with a lot of, shall we call, star entertainers. I was the supporting comic for singers. So I didn't work with the Bob Monkhouses until I went to the Talk of the Midlands at Derby to do a week. And I can't remember who I was on with that week, but it was a good week. And the compere at the Talk of the Midlands at Derby was a guy called Ricky DeSoni, who was a great singer. And he went to Australia. And the owners of the Talk of the Midlands said, "When Ricky leaves, will you come and take over as the resident I never compared before. Will you come and take over as the resident compere at the Talk of the Midlands?" Which was 30, 40 miles away from home. And it was 7 nights a week.
So you could go home after every show?
I could, yeah. So, and we had everybody there. So,
who were your favourite acts, favourite stars that were on there?
On there, favourite star on there, my favourite star to work with of all time was Matt Monroe.
Always Matt Monroe.
It's always Matt. I always come back to Matt because we spent a lot of time together. I never worked with him at the Talk. My favourite one at the Talk was Dave Allen.
Oh, Dave Allen.
Dave Allen was good. Marty Feldman.
Marty Feldman, great comics.
Jimmy Edwards.
Jimmy Edwards, the comedian, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Edwards, and Jimmy Edwards was a star in movies.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
A character, great character. But when I think about it now, I took things so much for granted. I wouldn't sleep now. We had Count Basie for 4 nights. We had Buddy Rich for 4 nights.
That would never happen now, would it?
No.
Never happen.
And I just took that. Now I wouldn't sleep. I'd be that excited.
Yeah.
But I got Buddy Rich and Count Basie wandering about backstage with me.
And did they do a few nights? They'd do
4 nights.
4 nights. And you just, it was as if they were just another jobbing act.
Yes, well, it was, I knew I was in the presence of royalty.
Yeah.
But
you took it in your stride.
Took it in my stride, yeah. But we had so many great entertainers there.
So you really have come, like from start to finish, you've always been in the business, even if you've had these little day jobs.
Well, what happened then, that was before Faces. I hadn't done New Faces then.
Right.
That was 72, 73. And then, and then after I did the winners show on New Faces with Les Dennis. I always mention Les.
Ah, lovely Les
because
Dennis.
Les went on to do that, and I went on to do Tupperware parties.
And who were the judges when you did New Faces?
When I did New Faces, I'll try and remember from I know the winners show was Arthur Askey did his very first one.
Buzzy Bee.
Yeah, I'm a little Buzzy Bee. Yeah, Arthur Askey, Tony Hatch was on my winners show.
Mm-hmm.
On the original show, Noel Gordon from
Crossroads.
Yeah,
loved Crossroads.
Was on the initial one, names I've forgotten now.
Who was the compare? So
the compare of the show was Derek Hobson.
Yeah,
and he compared the first show and the winners show, and I did the second one, and of course Les Cox was the producer, and Derek asked me when I did the winners show, this was before we went on air, he said, since you did the first show, anything happened to you different, anything I can mention? And I said, not really. I said, I've become a father. Oh, he said, that'll do. He said, what's his name? I said, Rob. And he said, right, so he said, we're going to introduce you now to a young man who made a name for himself last December when he was on, and when he won the award show in December. And since then he's become a father, and he's now the father of Robert. I think he mentioned his name. He might have just said he's a father. But the first time Rob got mentioned was in 1974. Yeah. That was the year he was born. He was mentioned then.
Amazing. Yeah. So you see, he's been in the business forever as well, hasn't he?
Well, you got to mention.
That's all he needs to be in this business. You get a mention.
Start to
you're in showbiz.
Correct. Yeah.
And so after you'd done the New Faces, did you find that your life really changed? Your career really took a different turn?
A lot of things happened then. I became pretty busy, and I was married to Jan at the time, and I couldn't earn a living in Stoke-on-Trent. My job took me away a lot, and quite rightly, she was not very happy about the amount of time I was spending away. So she said we should do something together. Well, I had a lot of friends in pubs. I spent a lot of time with them at the time, and I was told, why don't you apply? I think Bass Brewery at the time were putting faces in places, as I called it. A lot of footballers were taking pubs from the area. And I wrote to the brewery, and I was told that it would take at least a couple of years before they think about my letter.
That was a long time to wait. 2 years.
A long time. It's just the right time for me. Yeah. I wasn't that keen. But I thought to keep the peace, I would write a letter. So I wrote the letter. The following week, somebody came to see me and said, would you like the Red Lion in Burslem, in Stoke-on-Trent?
Burslem.
And the guy who's leaving is a friend of mine. He's leaving, going to another pub. And if you want that, you can have it. Well, I couldn't say I didn't want it, because I'd just written the letter, which would be a bit daft.
And to keep matrimonies,
I did it to keep
harmonies,
the peace.
Yeah,
I did it to keep the peace. And anyway, 3 weeks later, I moved in. I had to cancel all my work, and I took the bull by the horns and became the licensee of the Red Lion in Burslem. That was the year after I won New Faces.
And how long did you have the pub for?
How long did I stay at the pub?
Yeah.
3 years.
3 years.
Till 77, when we got divorced anyway. So you
went straight back to showbiz, straight back treading the boards?
Well, the business had changed completely. All the cabaret clubs that I worked in, they're all starting to close now at the end of the 70s. Cabaret clubs, as per se, were massive in the early 70s. Towards the end of the 70s, early 80s, they were all going by the board. They were all closing. The novelty had worn off. things had changed. Big venues had taken over. All for big stars. Big stars didn't need to do weeks anymore. They could do one night
In a stadium.
in a stadium and make the kind of money. Yeah.
And discos came in. There's a lot of discos.
Discos came in the
70s.
60s.
60s, 70s.
Yeah. So it all changed then, and I.
Did you panic? You come out the pub, you were getting
I've
divorced.
come out the pub.
What are you going to do?
The wilderness years.
The wilderness years.
I was very, very fortunate. For a little wee while, I had a phone call from the directors of Port Vale Football Club, and it was quite noted, it was in the paper that we'd divorced and I was single and I was lost. And I got a phone call from the Port Vale Football directors. Would I like to be the steward of Port Vale Social Club?
Right.
I've worked there.
Yeah.
It's my club. It's my.
You know it.
I know it very well. And I've got nothing to do, and I'm broke. So the answer is yes. So I became the steward of Port Vale Social Club. That didn't last for very long, as it happens. But of course, all my mates came and worked for me.
Yeah. So you get really good acts because you knew everybody.
I got great acts. I remember. You remember Ronnie Dukes and Ricky
Lee, very well.
They were absolute. Ronnie Dukes and Ricky Lee. As I haven't mentioned them yet, but I'll mention them now because as a direct thing from Winning New Faces, I got a summer season with Ronnie Dukes and Ricky Lee in Jersey.
In Jersey, I saw them in Great Yarmouth. I was a big fan of Ronnie Dukes and Ricky Lee. Loved them.
Everybody was. They
were fabulous.
It was a show within an act. He did comedy. She sang.
Yeah.
There was dancing. There was everything. There was a great band. Their own band. They were top of the bill. They were so good. They weren't the big name. They weren't the Shirley Bassey's, Tom Joneses, but they were big. Shirley Bassey and Tom Jones, I heard by reputation, didn't like to work with them because they couldn't follow them. Because
they were too good.
They were too good.
Strong, very strong act, yeah.
I compared them. This is an amazing fact. I was in Jersey at Beans West Park with Ronnie Dukes and Ricky Lee. They did 6 full stabs. They were written into the act. Full stabs. They were so confident they would keep full stabs as an encore, of course, and keep bringing them back. And so, as a compare, there was 3 full stabs when I'm actually on stage, and 3 full stabs where I do a voiceover from the back, and just keep bringing them back. And the audience used to go absolutely berserk.
And they'd have kept going. Probably the audience would have kept going if they would have kept coming out. Yeah,
they were phenomenal. Great
There was a lot of great double acts around in the 70s. Peters and Lee, Ronnie Dukes, Ricky Lee. There was just a lot of those good, and like we just mentioned, Marty Kane. There was a lot of good comics, a lot of good people that had nothing to do once these clubs.
Ronnie and Ricky worked predominantly up north.
Right.
They were a northern act.
Northern based.
Northern based act. Northern humour. They didn't travel much down south. But of course, top of the bills everywhere.
Yeah.
Another who I must mention, but I worked with a lot, and he was absolutely, God bless him, he's not with us anymore, was Joe Dolan.
Joe Dolan, yeah.
Joe Dolan, Irish.
Number
1 guy for me. Another, along with Matt, different kind of music completely. But Joe, we worked together a lot. He came and stayed with me down here in Stoke. I didn't realise how big he was till we went to an Irish club in Manchester one night, and it was like being with Tom Jones in Wales. It was unbelievable. Joe was wonderful, great singer, great entertainer, great presence on stage, and my mate.
I know that we were talking about the club at Port Vale where you were the steward, but now we've gone on a little bit to Joe Dolan. Didn't you have a bit of a hit yourself in Ireland?
I did.
If I remember rightly.
God bless him. Joe died 10 years ago, a couple of years ago. And the family asked me if I'd do Good Looking Woman, oh me, oh my, you make me sigh, you're such a good... That one. And I did a duet with him, and on the anniversary of his 10 years, he died 10 years ago, and it got to number 9 in the charts.
Number 9, yeah, that's literally a couple of years ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought you'd gone back in the charts.
Also, at Port Vale Club, a great night. I remember the night being such a success. Remember the Carl Denver Trio?
Carl Denver Trio, yeah.
Well, they were good mates of mine. There was Carl, Jerry Cottrell, and Kevin Neal. And their lead guitar, Kevin Neal played lead guitar, magnificent guitarist. bass player was Jerry Cottrell, and Carl was a character. And we spent a lot of time together doing Cabaret. And they used to come and do Port Vale Social Club for me.
So managed to get all your mates in.
Yeah.
And so that was a great audience. How lucky that audience were to get all those big acts and good acts.
I used to have a seating plan for a working men's club. They used to come and book the seats. It was great.
Because they'd all be desperate to get in.
Yeah.
And so that didn't last very long, though?
No, a couple of years.
And then where did you move on to then?
Then I call them the wilderness years. I'm single, I'm divorced, I've got nothing. I spent a lot of time with no car. I didn't have a fridge for a while. No car. It was my wilderness times.
We've all had them.
Yes, and I got Billy Forrest was an agent. My mate Billy Forrest.
He was my agent as well.
Yes, yeah, was he?
He was, yeah.
Well, Billy...
Cocker Forest.
Well, Jersey. I did the summer season in Jersey for him. And Billy rang me and he said, holiday camps as we called them in those days, are looking for compares. And would you come and audition for... No, said I. No, I won't. I said, I think I've been around too long to audition for and he said, you haven't got any option, Cocker. I said, why is that? He said, you haven't got any money. And I said, well, you've got a point there, Bill. And
I'll do it.
He said, come and audition for me in Coventry for this Haven. No, it was Ladbrokes Holidays.
Ladbrokes before Haven, yeah.
So Ladbrokes Holidays were the place to go to then. It was taken over by Haven eventually. So I went and auditioned, and I got a summer season. This is 1980, 81, something like that. And he gave me a summer season in Cornwall, at Perrin Sands.
Perrin Sands, still going strong.
Yep, and I thought, this will do for me. And I played cricket. We haven't got round to my cricket.
Oh, I haven't got round to your sport. That's a whole other episode.
So I played cricket a lot in my younger days, and I missed that a lot because I got into the entertainment business. I couldn't play on Saturday, of course.
No time for sport, yeah.
So I went to Cornwall and to Perrin Sands, which is a wonderful place to spend a summer. And it was on a hill, it was Perrin Sands, and down the hill at the bottom was the cricket pitch. And I got involved with the cricket side down there. And I played for Perranporth while I was there for 4 years.
4 years you were there? 4 years?
Well, I did 4 years there, yeah.
That's a long stint.